Hi there, that's me unmuted, Barney.
Bonjour, Barney. This is Denis.
Good, good.
And Barney, you have been registered as an attendee, so we are not able to see you.
Okay.
Could you maybe link with the panelist link, please? And we will be starting in about, for the attendees, so we'll start in 30 seconds or 1 minute.
That's
Barney, you did receive an email earlier. Yeah. There you are. Super.
Good.
So James, should we start?
Please begin.
So good morning or good afternoon or good evening all. Good morning for those in North America and South America. Good afternoon for people in Africa and Europe. And of course, good evening for people located in Middle East and Asia. And welcome to this second clean conversation. And today it's the role of cities. I'm Denis Leclerc from Montreal. I'm based in Montreal, Canada. I'm the CEO of Ecotech Quebec. We represent the clean tech cluster in Quebec. And I will be your moderator today. We have a fantastic panel, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves in a few minutes. But let me just say a few words about why those conversations. Basically, it's an initiative from International Clean Tech Network and Solar Impulse Foundation. The two are working together to promote clean technology, so clean and green innovations. And International Clean Tech Network, it's a network of clean tech clusters from 15 countries. And Solar Impulse, they have their great initiative of 1,000 solutions, efficient solutions. And we'll have their chairman explaining what they are doing in a few minutes. So why have we decided to talk about the role of cities after COVID or during COVID? So the world has changed, and we all know, I hope so, that the recovery should not be a return to business as usual. No way, no status quo. We need to change, because if it's business as usual, just remember a few months ago, the world was on track for a 3 degrees Celsius or more of overeating. Just climate, just that information means that, of course, we need to change. We need to review what we were doing and what can we be doing to make sure that we have a sustainable recovery, but also not only sustainable, but resilient and innovative recovery. Just a few words about the importance of cities. You probably know that more than half of us live in cities. So more than 50% of the population right now lives in cities. And in 10 years, we will be 60%. So it's a major pressure and opportunities for cities. Although that they just occupy 3% of the land, 3% of the land, but they account for 60 to 80% of energy consumption, and they represent at least 70% of the carbon emissions or greenhouse gas emission. So cities, the economic role of cities, but also the environmental role of cities is important. Economically, of course, it's approximately 80% of GDP. So major economic motor of growth. So that's why we decided to focus on cities, because sustainable development cannot be achieved without transforming the way we build and manage cities. So the agenda today is we'll ask each of the panelists to say a few words, and then we receive questions from you. So we'll be asking some of those questions, and then after that I'll go live to hear your questions. So if you wish to ask a question, you have a possibility of clicking on the raise hand. I'll see that you have a question, then I will open your mic and ask you to ask the question. So short question, and if you can say to whom you're directing your questions to. So let's start. Let's start by roundtable, and let's go. Bertrand Piquant for Solar Impulse Foundation will be with us in a few minutes. So let's go to Pele. Pele, can you introduce yourself and say a few words about what do you see? What's the impact of this COVID and a potential, hopefully sustainable recovery from Copenhagen? I guess I think that you're based in Denmark, but I think it's in Copenhagen. Is that right, Pele?
That is correct. And thank you, Denis. And lovely to be here. I'm very happy to be on this panel for this second round. Let me just start by introducing myself and the organization I come from before I try to answer your question. I work for Realdania, and Realdania is a philanthropic association working with sustainability within the built environment. We are much like a foundation, and we have a granting capacity in the vicinity of $150 million per year. So not insignificant. And in particular, since we, for the most part at least, work exclusively within Denmark and on behalf of Denmark's 5.5 million inhabitants. So in that sense, we're kind of like an American community foundation. Our community is just a country in this case. I work with climate predominantly, and in particular with mitigation, but also a little bit of adaptation. And also I'm the grant manager for our one of our few, but probably the most significant international grant we've ever done is our partnership with C40 Cities, the network of 96 global megacities committed to combat climate change. So yeah, I have a bit of insight on what's going on there. And to answer that question, both with regard to Copenhagen, but also all of the cities that we work with through C40, COVID was certainly a jolt to the system, interrupting many of our activities and way of working together. But it also comes at an opportune time when we needed and still need to put even more focus on equality, on minimizing the risk of climate change and tackling climate change in the long run as well. And it has been sort of a key argument to what we've done and what C40 has done over the past couple of years, and will continue to do so increasingly over the next years, is to answer a fundamental question that citizens are asking themselves. Will we get out of this situation okay? And will there be a role for me in it? And that's really one of the questions we've put our minds to try and answer via good examples, via creating initiatives that drive urban city change in a sustainable direction, but also drives opportunity for some of the disenfranchised and the weakest of our citizens. So this situation must not this COVID situation is an upset and a crisis, and crises are always basis for change. And we must use this moment where we're reevaluating everything and drive a more safe, inclusive, and climate safe and inclusive world.
Thank you, Pele. And you've been working with Henrik at the Clean. So I'll ask Henrik to say a few words to introduce himself, and what about Clean, and what's the partnership, what type of activities and initiative you work together?
We'll do that. Yeah, thank you very much, Dini. Hello, everyone. My name is Henrik Bjørnøgge Jensen, and I am Director of the International Operations in the Danish Cleantech Cluster, Clean. So we have a focus in Denmark on supporting Danish initiatives between sort of the typical helix format that we have, so cities, universities, and companies. But we also have a focus internationally, where we are working a lot with cities in different sort of partnerships and constellations, but have been working also intensively the last 4.5 years with the C40 cities, developing programs for the cities in that network. Yeah, that is of course a journey where a lot of the questions that have been posted here is sort of relevant sort of input to that. Then we in Clean, of course, with the Danish focus we have involved ourselves in a network sort of introduced by Denis to begin with, the International Cleantech Network. That is a great way for our smaller companies to get sort of a larger footprint and access to partners and opportunities globally. So that is some of the core pillars for us working internationally. Denmark is small, and then Clean is even smaller, so we need these sort of partnerships. So that was a brief one from me.
Talking about, thank you, Henrik, talking about partnership, Clean and International Cleantech Network, and then the partnership with Solar Impulse. Bertrand is with us, Bertrand Picard. Bertrand, if you can introduce yourself. We all know you. So just a few words about what's the role of the foundation, but also what's the initiative of the 1000 Solutions?
Yes. Hello to everyone. Sorry to join so late because I have 2 meetings at the same time. The other one being with the French Minister of Energy, Environment and Transport, because the French government with the President Emmanuel Macron really wants a clean recovery. And now he's asking to a lot of advisors, what are the solutions that we can implement at national and international level in order to reach a green recovery. So I think where the Solar Impulse can really help is with the partnership that we have with ICN. We are now identifying 1000 solutions that are financially profitable to protect the environment. And I think this is really important because you can protect the environment in a very expensive way, or you can destroy the environment in a very profitable way. What we want to show is actually that you can protect the environment in a much more profitable way, being a fantastic opportunity for job creation and profit. Which means that when we speak about the green recovery, even if there was no problem with the environment, even if there was no issue with climate change, it would make perfect sense to build a world that is more efficient, that saves energy, natural resources, that open new industrial opportunities and so on. So when we speak about that at national level, of course, we see it with a broader vision, but sometimes it takes a lot of time to implement something. At the city level, I think we have a leverage that is maybe not as big as on national level, but it is much faster. The decisions can be taken faster. And it's just a question of identifying what would be more efficient, what would be new business opportunities. And it is not one solution that will change the city. It's a lot of them. So what we have suggested to the cities we work with, like Paris, or a region like the Grand Est in France, is to just study the 530 labeled solutions that we have already selected, already labeled, and see which one can make a little difference. We work with the city of Brussels also, I forgot to say. They have a system that has been labeled at the Solar Impulse Foundation to detect all the leaks of the water pipes in the city. A thing like that is profitable in 6 months or even less, because there are leaks everywhere that you can identify. Other really interesting leverage are the public procurement. If the public procurement for a city are based only on the short-term profit, it will be inefficient. If it is based on the entire life of ownership, it's going to be much different. So we work with cities for the public procurement to see which are the rules that we can implement in order to support the environmental solutions rather than the solutions that destroy the environment. So we see that it's always a little bit the same language I'm repeating. The goal is really to show what is profitable, because if you come to a city, to a country or whatever, and you say it's expensive to protect the environment, they will tell you there are other priorities. But if you say that today it is more profitable to implement new technologies, then you have a good leverage. And these technologies, we are finding them every day with a partnership with ICN. Every country, a member of ICN, is encouraging its members to submit the solutions to the Solar Impulse Foundation. We are showing these solutions to our group of experts. We have 450 experts now, and they are validated, they are assessed, they receive the label, and they can be promoted. They can enter into this pipeline of solutions that we can bring to cities, that we can bring to regions or countries. So I repeat that all this is completely for free, because we are a non-for-profit foundation at Solar Impulse, and the goal is really to contribute with the new technologies to a cleaner and much more efficient world that can be at the same time much more profitable.
Merci beaucoup, Bertrand. And those efficient solutions can be very good tools for cities to improve their operations as well. And as you already said, Bertrand, you know, clean technology should not be only ecological. They have to be logical, and logical in terms of efficient and profitable. Exactly. Profitable is key. Merci, Bertrand. Let's go to Cape Town, South Africa. That is fall right now. Winter is coming, so Lance is with us.
Yes, hi Dennis. Hi, yeah, so I'm Lance Strailing. I'm Director for Enterprise and Investment at the City of Cape Town. And our department essentially looks after the kind of economic mandate of the city. And we have a very diverse economy in Cape Town, where we've got some interesting sectors which we are currently leading in, particularly in Africa, such as the film sector and the tech sector, with more tech startups than anywhere else on the continent. But one of the sectors which we are also leading in is the green economy sector. And it's one of the sectors that we look into for the recovery after COVID. And I must say, I think we're in a very different situation to a lot of the other cities, that are on this call in terms of COVID. We just at the start of our surge in Cape Town. Well, thankfully, we had time. We imposed a lockdown fairly early on, and we got our health systems ready. But we're going to be reaching our peak within about the next 6 weeks or so in Cape Town. So we need to still go through this, but when we get over this, we definitely want to look to the recovery. And the green economy is certainly one that we look into. And one of the visions that we have for the green economy for Cape Town is we really want to be the green hub of Africa, where we are producing the kinds of ideas and the manufacturing the technologies to really spur on the kind of green economy revolution, not only in Cape Town, but in fact for the African continent as well. And we think that we've got a number of capacities here that enable us to do that. So you would have probably already heard, we have a number of, so most of the companies that feed into the National Renewable Energy Program are based in Cape Town. They manufacture a lot of the local materials for the renewable energy program. We also have 4 higher education institutions here that are all kind of geared towards looking at these programs and seeing how we can maximize them. So we think we've got a lot of capabilities here, and we certainly want to attract more investment and use this sector to drive our recovery coming out of COVID. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Lance. Yeah, attract investment. This is key, and attract good innovation also. So we'll chat about this later on. And now let's go to Scotland. We have Barney with us. Good afternoon, Barney. Yeah. We hear you, Barney.
Okay, you hear me. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm Barney Crockett, the Lord Provost of Aberdeen, which is a kind of fancy name for mayor. Aberdeen has a very strong history in fossil fuels and oil and gas, but is determined to move sort of very rapidly into energy transformation and into particularly in certain aspects. We've had a big interest for quite a long time on things like hydrogen, and we've played a big role there. But we are maybe of some interest to the participants. We're a particularly low public sector economy with very small public sector, very large, very, very large private sector. So we're keen to get up to meet the challenges of energy transformation and try, as very much welcome Bertrand's comments there about making it profitable. That's going to be what we're going to have to do. We have, I think, the biggest number of companies per head of anywhere in the UK and possibly wider afield. So we have to try and get a future for them. A big particular interest of mine, enthusiasm, is to get that social involvement in energy transformation at the grassroots. So again, that's something we look for. Partners like Cape Town have shown us the way in some of these things, and we thank Cape Town for our introduction to this event. But in addition to being the Lord Provost in Aberdeen, I'm fortunate enough to be the president of World Energy Cities partnership with Cape Town and many others. And again, most of those cities have a background in oil and gas, but really what's been amazing is the speed in which they're really adapting to thinking of energy transformation. When I first was being sort of thought of as president, it was really quite it was one of my demands that we made that move. So that has been in the update. So very keen to work. I think internationally, we're very keen to work internationally, which sometimes is unusual in the UK. And we're very much involved in European initiatives as well, and keen to take part in partnerships with others in that regard. So
thank you very much. What is interesting is we have different views of what's going on in your world and your region, but with this pandemic of COVID, what we're hearing is the thing, we will see changes, but what type of changes? And we did receive several questions for you, and some of them were about public procurement or green procurement, or how what's the role of a city to help to assist those startup companies that they're looking for a way to demonstrate their technology? They're looking for a test bed. How can a city be that kind of helper for the SMEs? Because as you all know, cities, they're probably number one user of, there should be number one user of a clean technology. So in your city or in your initiative, how can you fast track the implementation or the demonstration of those efficient solution or clean technology solutions? So this is a question for all of you. I can see all of you. You just raise your hand and I'll give you the mic. If not, I'll be asking you, Pele, you're first, and then Barney.
So I think there's several things a city can do. So without going into a full thesis on it, I think having the city, first of all, acknowledge that procurement can play a significant role in the green transition, I think is a great first step. I think many cities don't see that today, and I think that's a role we as foundations and other interest organizations must make them aware of. For instance, the city of Copenhagen alone has a procurement volume in the vicinity of $5 or $6 billion per year. The volume alone in that buys you influence on suppliers. So leveraging that and getting on with it is sort of first step. But obviously, for startups and innovators, it's a difficult market to enter into because how can their solution cater to the city's need? And I think Clean was born out of an initiative from the city of Copenhagen with a number of partners, and Henrik can probably speak more to this. But the idea of creating a safe space where you can engage with a number of innovator companies, along probably with some bigger names that can sort of carry the financial risk along the way, but setting up these partnerships and have them workshop together on trying to address some of the city's issues and opportunities, be that within the food industry or within the construction industry or within the transport sector. There are a number of innovations that we can bring to bear, and where we can sort of de-risk it for the city to work with innovator companies via these partnerships, rather than them trying to sell in a standalone solution. So I think the partnership thinking and the safe space is key to this.
Yeah, in terms of a partnership, you do partner with Clean on a C40 initiative for cities. And Rick, you raise your hand, and then after that, Barney, you're next. Henrik. Sorry, Henrik. You're on mute.
I'm not anymore. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
Yeah. No, definitely, as Pelle mentioned, the de-risk is a key sort of thing to sort of break for the cities. And also clusters like Clean, we represent mostly small and medium-sized companies, a lot of startups. And getting them sort of directly in the loop with cities needs to be a facilitated process. Very often, as Pelle mentioned, doing it in groups where they can implement their solutions into a partnership with potentially bigger companies, can sort of de-risk not only for the city, but also the role for the startup companies towards big cities can also be sort of a quite wide span in their sort of resource requirements. So it does require some programs and processes that be agreed upon, that the city says we want this, but then they need support. Yeah, that can be established many ways, but clusters is definitely one of them. Yeah.
And Barney, what's going on in Scotland? In Aberdeen?
Yeah, well, one of the things we do, we have regular meet the buyer meetings where we invite small companies who might be able to bid to do things in the city for the city to come along and have things explained. We obviously work in a very, very regulated environment in Scotland in terms of public procurement, so we have to help people through that. And one interesting thing is that really we've learned a lot from the working with the oil and gas industry there, because similar events to try and help small companies engage with energy companies. And in fact, at one point we had a meeting with Petrobras, and two people flew from Brazil because it was the easiest way to meet Petrobras was to come to Aberdeen. So we try and open the doors for people. And also we try and use companies to open the doors for smaller companies. I think that's one thing that we managed to get. We can't always afford to do everything. So we had one major energy company paid for 5 very innovative companies to take part in the subsea exhibition that we held. So it helped sort of 5 green energy future orientated companies to take part. So we have to try and go look to involve the bigger private sector in trying to support the smaller companies sometimes come to. The other thing we have to do is to try and really showpiece, allow people to show what they can do. And one of the ways we can do that is getting them involved in award schemes as well. I think that can also help. So we have the Queen's Award for Enterprise in the UK. And one we've pioneered really having a sustainability element. The first time, the last few years, we've had the existing categories were things like exports and so forth. But we've had a Queen's Award for Sustainability in Enterprise. And we've been managing to really publicize that with our companies and try and get entries for that. So I think we have to try and be creative as well, and trying again to work in various grassroots ways. So we've been trying to encourage worker cooperatives to engage in procurement with us as well. We're very active in trying to do that kind of thing as well. So hopefully a range of things that we can do.
Yeah, you're talking about partnership procurement. There's really two ways of accelerating the implementation of solutions. And how about in Lance in Cape Town, you do work closely with GreenCape, which is your clean tech cluster. I guess that they are instrumental of making those connections with SMEs and major users or the cities?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we definitely use GreenCape as a kind of intermediary. So they work with a lot of the companies and advise them on how they can properly tender for different government contracts and that, and advise them of all of the kind of regulations around that side of things. So they're a great partner to have on that. The other things that we do as a city as well is that we also try and break up our tenders. So instead of pushing out big, large tenders that only big companies can then tender for, we try to break it down into pieces to give opportunities to smaller companies to also then tender for that. And one of the things that we also fund alongside GreenCape is Sarevi, which is the South African Renewable Energy Incubator. And this we specifically actually placed in an area which is going to be close to the SEZ. So that they are able to then take advantage and supply into some of the big component manufacturer companies, some of which are obviously international in flavor as well, so that they can feed in there. So those are some of the things we do. We also run a number of supplier development workshops with our SMMEs so that we can get them acquainted with how you can go about tendering and how you can actually participate in that. And I think the last thing that we do as well that I wanted to mention is that we also make it a stipulation on some of our tenders that companies need to actually partner with smaller companies if they're going to be successful in a tender. So that we force them to make those partnerships upfront when they actually submit their tender documents.
Yeah, Bertrand is back, and I'll ask Bertrand this question because Bertrand is traveling around the world. You're meeting a lot of cities and mayors and government authorities. You have partnership with Paris, Brussels, as you said, and others. what are the key obstacles, Bertrand and others, that you see to public procurement or to green procurement that we need to address if we want to advance our sustainability, or if we want to advance sustainability in cities? Bertrand,
yes. Yeah, excellent question. I like it. There are several obstacles. One is the inertia. It is so much easier to continue to do what we have always done rather than to do something different. The second obstacle is the initial investment. Quite often, you have an investment to do for something more efficient that is a little bit more expensive at the beginning. But over the total time of ownership, it reimburses the investment many times. So if you count on the first day, it's more expensive. If you count on 10 years, it is much cheaper. And then there is another big problem. It is legally allowed to pollute. It is legally allowed to be inefficient. Everything that people are doing now is legal. Put as much CO2 as you want in the atmosphere, having badly insulated houses, having polluting cars. All this is legal, which means that you have a lot of questions of people saying, why should I do differently if what I'm doing is allowed? So I'm really speaking to the mayors of the cities who are listening now. You are the one who can make a difference. You are the one who can say, from this moment on, it is not legal anymore to have a house that is not insulated, to have a car in the center of the city that is polluting with polluting particles. And I think you can do it for a very simple reason, is that the new solution to replace the old solution is more profitable. But even if it's more profitable, you need to give a kick to implement it. I give you an example. Somebody I know very well went to a public hospital and said, I can replace for free all your lighting systems with LED lamps. I have my own way to fund it. So I replace for free, doesn't cost you anything. And I pay myself on half of the energy saving that you do. And you will save 2 million Swiss francs per year. And the director of the hospital said, no, because my budget for the year is 2 billion. So to save 2 million, it's not worth it. Can you imagine something like that? It is profitable, it is public money, and this money is wasted because of old inefficient systems that the director does not want to replace. Something like that should be prohibited by law. It should be absolutely mandatory to use all the cleanest, most efficient energy, water, construction systems, technologies, materials, product, and so on. We have to be up to date with what we have. And we pollute because we are outdated in the technology that are implemented today.
Bertrand, is this the role of a city? In terms of inertia, I can understand procurement that it's easy to copy paste what we've done before. Initial investment versus total cost of ownership, that's also something that it's becoming to change. In terms of pollution, taxes on pollution, I want to hear Barney about this. Is it something feasible in your city?
Well, we're constrained in different ways by the different levels of government in our country, but basically, yes, we can try and do things. So we've just closed off the city centre for traffic at the moment. We're going to use the COVID experience as to take the benefit of an experiment. So we are closing off our main street to traffic and an area and restricting traffic a lot right through the city centre. And that's quite controversial, but it's a step along the way of what Bertrand suggests. And I think it's one example of using this period to push forward things that, rather than sitting back and thinking that things will go back to what we used to call normality. So I think that cities will do that. I think the pressure on cities, I think Bertrand mentioned quite rightly that cities can sometimes act with greater alacrity, greater speed than governments, and we certainly hope to do that. But also the pressures that come to city politicians are much more immediate sometimes than for national. So things like air quality, I think right over the world, and of course, places like Paris were mentioned, air quality is an enormous driver of what local politicians do, and we have that in our city as well. I have to say, my own background, I used to work, when I was very young, I worked in a chemical works, and we produced vast clouds of nitrogen oxides at that time. That would be horrible to think about. But even with our much lower levels, people realize it's a bad health impact, and so the pressures are very much there to change. And so yes, I think cities will be the drivers for that.
Any other reaction from the panelists?
I have one reaction to Barney, saying that we have a partnership with Scotland as a country. So of course, we would be very happy to collaborate with Aberdeen. So let's stay in touch, and you can see in the 530 solutions that have already been labeled, I'm sure that there are quite a lot that will be interesting for you, and it would be a nice example for Nicola Sturgeon to have the city of Aberdeen being a place where we can experiment some of these solutions. So really, let's stay in touch. It would be great.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic, Bertrand. Absolutely fantastic. I have to say, just as a sort of joke, I mean, as you know, politicians don't always get on, and Ms. Sturgeon's predecessor described me as the insane leader of the Kamikaze Council, but that was in the context of hydrogen. So we'll be very keen to work on the solutions with you, Bertrand.
Absolutely. Maybe it can raise your political profile towards Nicola Sturgeon if we work together.
There's only one photograph of me and Mr. Salmon together, and it's on a hydrogen bus. We were keen to be together on the hydrogen bus. No, wonderful, wonderful.
That would be good to see those innovative or efficient solutions at work during the COP26 also next year. So
yes, yeah, for sure.
So let's go to live questions. The audience, this is the chance for you to ask questions. Just raise your hand, and I'll open your mic to make sure that you can ask your question to our panelists. So I don't see for now questions, but I do have other questions from, we received a question about partnership. So cities are working, of course, with their counterparts, but cities with cities. Pelé talked about C40 initiative. There's other type of partnership. And to try to identify or to develop innovative solutions for their issues. It can be an issue or opportunity. So sometimes major or cities, they have, let's say, similar challenges. So if they get together, maybe then they can speed up the development of an innovation. Do you work like this in your cities? Lance, how about in South Africa?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly support the idea of cities working together to try and work on kind of complex challenges. And I know, for instance, with the C40, they put various challenges out which different guys work together on, and then you see if you can implement them. But I think in practice, it always becomes quite difficult. But it's definitely is something that needs to be explored going forward. I think that we need to find ways in which we can cooperate as cities, because we really don't have time to reinvent the wheel, particularly when it comes to climate change. So I do think we need to borrow from each other, learn from each other, and then work together on common challenges. So I certainly support the idea. I think in practice, we just need to get that right as to how that properly gets implemented.
Is it the same thing you see, Barney?
Yeah, absolutely. We've, I think, possibly because we've had particular, financial challenges. Because, as I mentioned, we're a very private sector city, small public sector. We have to make very careful use of the public money, and so partnership working is one way we've tried to magnify the benefit of that. And I think, just to give you one example, we actually operate 2 European Union projects in Aberdeen, although Britain is not in the European Union anymore. So we have projects, for example, on road sweepers using hydrogen road sweepers and waste trucks. We're working with cities right across Europe in doing that. So we have the Europe's offshore wind deployment center, the test center for wind turbines, the most powerful wind turbines outside of Asia, I think. And again, that's the partnership working with other places. So partnership working is absolutely central to what we do, and in particular international. I mentioned the work, we work with Cape Town and others in the World Energy Cities. To us, that's the absolute key to how we operate and how cities must operate in the future.
How do okay? So Billy and Rick, you've been working on this initiative with C40. Can you explain how this is possible, and is there a way for you to help Barney with the money?
Billy, will you lead on that, or?
Yeah, sure, I can. Yeah. First off, however, I would like to help Barney. I think it's a little bit hard. We try to focus on the membership cities, but I will say one thing about helping other cities, and I'm sorry if I diverge from the original question. So one of the things that C40 is going to focus a lot more on in the coming years is how to share their knowledge and experience with the many other cities in the world that are interested in making the green transition. So it's going to be a key component of the business plan for 21 to 25. How to share and get the knowledge out there and get other cities interested. And we're actually working on something quite like that in Denmark. We're taking the sort of the climate action planning framework that C40 has, and is a membership condition to be a part of the C40. You must have or be in the process of developing a climate action plan, which is in tune with the Paris Agreement 1.5 degree target. We're taking that methodology and applying it to the 97 other municipalities in Denmark and getting them on that track as well. And thereby we're developing the tools for all the other cities in the world and all the other municipalities that want to get going on this, but don't know exactly how to do it, or have been going for a number of years, but are working within specific sectors because it's their strong points. Like Barney has been strong on energy. Maybe Barney needs some assistance in, if he has, I don't know if you have, Barney, but if you have an agricultural, if there's part of your city that has agricultural emissions, how do you tackle those? Getting those experiences and getting that framework out there is key. Okay, going back to the original question. And Henrik can probably also answer this, but the key is, create that safe space, get people into the room, get them interested in seeing an opportunity, get the city to formulate as clearly as possible the challenge without predefining the solution. If it's something that's already out there and on the shelf, that's not interesting for these partnerships. It has to be a gnarly problem. It's and the solution needs to be big and hairy, or I don't know, might be the other way around in that terminology. But yeah, so that's the stuff you want to tackle. You want to tackle congestion in Sao Paulo. There's not a one-stop shop. You can go out to a consultant and buy a solution for that. That's a multi-pronged problem you need to solve, and you need to solve it with other people.
Yeah. So, Henrik, how SMEs or clean tech companies can discover those challenges with the initiative that you're doing with the C40 and the Nordic countries?
Yeah, so working with C40 cities, of course, makes it visible the challenges they have, and very often they are the same. And they're the same whether they are C40 city or not C40 city, when it comes to many of these areas being pollution or waste or traffic. So some of the lessons that we learned there, and where we sort of can see there's a bridge that we can sort of get companies from the focus that we have here in Denmark and clean members into, is something we can replicate in many of these sort of cases. So it's actually taking and using these tools that we have done with the big cities, and we've done so, for instance, where we've done workshops in Brazil with city like Sao Paulo or Rio, where the same issues is relevant in Brasilia, and thereby all of a sudden we're sort of using the same framework or lessons learned from workshops done with other cities and the partners being involved there in a relationship with Brasilia also. We're doing it with LA right now, and San Diego, which is not a C40 city. We did it with Helsinki, that had sort of an energy sort of challenge they wanted to get the market and innovation sort of input to. That is not a C40 city at all, but sort of used the same models and a way of doing it that allowed the companies to make themselves visible. Depending on size, it can be very difficult, of course. But here, because it was sort of a structured process for these cities, the visibility of these smaller and innovative companies sort of got the opportunity not only to present themselves, but also to present themselves sort of to each other, and thereby finding the partner that could sort of be the lead, take sort of some of the risk out of the engagement with the larger cities. So there's so many ways, and as you know, C40 is one of the bigger city networks, but there are 38 of these, so we do need to do some consolidation or best practices and learning from each other, and certainly dissemination to go up and down. We don't have that many big cities in Denmark, so it's quite important for us.
Yeah, so you know, I can see here a potential partnership between your initiative, Barney, the World Energy Cities, combined with the 1,000 solutions for solar impulse, and helping lands in South Africa. You know, there's a huge opportunity here to team up to create those type of partnership to accelerate not only the development of technology, but the technology transfer to cities. And this is something that is this is feasible. And then my last question, because we're almost over and there is no hands raised. Last question is, okay, so what's next? What should we be doing as our next step? Our next step, I mean the society, not only you in particular, but what's the next step? Bertrand, what's the next step?
Can I answer, Denis?
Yes, please.
I think the next step should be for the cities to study in every field where the city can be more efficient, more healthy, more profitable. Not looking for one solution that covers everything, but looking for every little thing, the materials for insulation, the lighting, the cooling, the mobility, the waste management, the water. And this is really something completely open source that we have, where the cities can really look like in a catalog what they can take. And they can take, maybe for every city, there would be 200 solutions. That means technologies, material, product, systems that would be relevant. Of course, it's not the same in Sweden or in South Africa. It's not the same in New York or in Paris. But in average, I'm sure there are at least 200 new systems or technologies that could be implemented. And this makes money because it saves energy, saves natural resources, or it just opens new markets. So it's really not a question of asking anything, when not asking for subsidies, not asking for public money. Just ask for the right person in the city to study what exists and how it can be implemented, maybe at first as a test, and if it really works, to put it on a wider range.
So focus on the challenge, identify the challenge and their solutions that can help them resolve their challenge.
Yes, and sometimes do the other way around. Look at the solutions even before identifying the challenge, because the solutions will show how outdated most of the infrastructures are. When you see what exists, you can say, wow, I never thought about that. This could be implemented.
All right. What's the next step, Barney?
I think that just to echo what Bertrand said, and in particular go back to that point, you know, of that more intense cooperation between cities to do the things and speed up the things that Bertrand spoke about. So let's, I'm very excited to see these 1,000 solutions and to maybe add some of Aberdeen ones, and you know, take it from there of that more intense cooperation. I think that Per Lund isn't going to be spending his money in Aberdeen. It's for Denmark. But, you know, we work closely with Esbjerg always, and we've had cooperation in the past with Ober. So let's look at how we can do things between the different cities and make sure that everything can work. And I think that cities, just to, again, underline an early point from yourself and from Bertrand, is that cities are going to be at the center of this, and they will all be trying to push for the reasons that Bertrand mentioned. So I think that it's been it's enthused me massively, and I think that we can share some of our own solutions as well.
Thank you, Lance. What's the next step?
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's a couple of next steps, but I think, I mean, we've been talking a lot about the kind of mitigation, but I think there's also a lot we can learn on adaptation. And certainly Cape Town had a taste of this about 2 years ago with the drought and how we had to come through that. And so I think there's a lot that we can certainly share with cities about how to face some of the huge kind of climate impacts that are going to be hitting us, and how one adapts very quickly, and how you involve your SMMEs and your ecosystem in trying to resolve issues like that. So I think definitely that's a challenge that we can all face together and share knowledge about.
And Rick, on your side, Pele had to leave because he has a C40 board meeting and starting right now. So, Henrik, what's the next step?
I think the next step is starting to combine a bit like what we've done here with the collaboration between ICN and Solar Impulse. But we also need to sort of do further consolidation of these 38, 39, 40 other city network initiatives, so that we don't sort of create that many silos and invest so many resources, time and funding into a lot of similar challenge management and handling. So that will sort of be the big dream, is to get that internationally sort of better structured. Time is running fast on this matter.
Yeah. Thank you all for your participation, and for all of you. Perhaps one of your next steps is to be with us June 24th. We have another clean conversation with major corporations. What's their role? What's next also for them? So thanks to our panelists, thanks to International Clean Tech Network and Solar Impulse for this initiative, and hope to see you soon, and hope to partner with you soon. All right? Thank you all.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup.
Bye.
Merci.